Every place carries questions. Questions written in its landscapes, its languages, its archives, and even its silences. Across the Southern Hemisphere, our stories have been shaped by trade routes and migration, struggle and imagination, and decisions made generations before we even arrived. The Southern Question is a podcast about curiosity. Together with leaders, historians, and citizens, we explore the tensions and forces that shaped our past, our present, and the possibilities that shape our future. This is where history lives. This is where history speaks. And this is where we begin. I'm Jolene Martin, and I'll be asking the Southern Question. Once in a while, we'll be turning our attention to those shaping the present in ways that redefine the future. Contemporary Southern shift makers who don't inherit systems, they shift them. From the global South, a new architecture of power is emerging, and these are the people building it. Today's shift maker is Denzel Swarts. He is from the soil of Simonsig, 3 generations deep, a name now shaping the future of South African wine. Recently, he was awarded the Growing Inclusivity Award. This is more than a story, it's a shift, and this is the Southern Question.
We have to start with a round of applause, because I didn't get to applaud you. So here's my round of applause for you winning the Growing Inclusivity Award at Groot Constantia.
Thank you very much.
I'm not even getting, thank you, yes. Growing Inclusivity Award at Groot Constantia. Denzil, I've always been proud of you. I'm even more proud of you now. When I envisioned this podcast, I knew that you were going to be one of my guests, and you being an overachiever as usual, you went and beat me to it and just put in one more award.
Yeah, I had to make it happen.
What was the night like? What was it like?
Magical. I think I seldom say that I'm completely nervous, but that night was one of those moments where it was kind of like the butterflies were there, the nerves were there, but I felt it wasn't just this nerves of excitement, but it was this nerves of knowing that you're getting an award for carrying the dreams and hopes of farm workers, and that you're actually representing them in that moment. So it was this, like, it should have been this light-hearted, quite celebratory award, but the award was enjoyable, but there were a sense of responsibility and sort of weight that came with it, which is amazing to feel, because how many people can really say that they received an award carrying the hopes and dreams of farm workers with them, and that makes it all worth it.
Did you stand there as Denzil, or did you stand there as 3rd generation farm laborer who's done something with his life? Which persona was it?
Definitely 3rd generation farm worker and child of a farm worker, that I stood there, proudly so. It's one of those moments where you realize that nothing of that could have happened if it wasn't for the farm workers who carried you on their shoulders. Nothing of that would have happened if it wasn't for you sitting around the fire in the vineyard early morning during holiday jobs and listening to the joys of farm workers, but also listening to the pains that they were experiencing and the hopes and their dreams that just didn't come through for them.
Wow.
But those dreams that they were laboring to kind of envisage their children achieving it. And I know a lot of them where their children have now just become the next generation of general worker, but they are able to look past that and see a product of themselves in me who actually broke those barriers and are able to find or to center themselves around it and say that we've achieved it through him. This is a child that grew up in front of us, and me being able to acknowledge that, give them so much hope and power to say that, you know what, it's you. I'm carrying you with me in rooms. I'm carrying you with me on international flights. I'm carrying you with me when I speak about South Africa and the wine industry, and proudly farm child, proudly Plajapi.
Plasjapi.
You know, like proudly this bare feet child. And I think that for me is just so important.
Tell us about the farm. Tell us about Mom. Mom was a domestic worker, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
Dad was a farm foreman. He must have been a formidable character. But tell us about the 3 generations and tell us about farm life.
Yeah, so of course my granddad moved from Worcester to Stellenbosch. Met this amazing wife on one of the farms, and then continued staying there. And my mom then were born. My mom and dad met each other in that area of Stellenbosch called Kulenhof. Married and then decided to continue working on the farm. My mom, in her loving and passionate self for being a servant leader in her space, worked as a domestic worker and being of service to others, and that's how I want to see it. And Dad, of course, being the foreman on the farm, I think he gets that from being in the military and then coming back to the farm.
Was he military as well?
Yeah.
Okay, welcome to the castle.
Thank you very much. So I'm definitely bringing him back home. And taking the leadership on the farm, and I think the strictness or more the discipline of the military made him really a man who kind of did things in a certain way, and people respected that, and he carried himself in that way. And the same with us. I mean, he was really strict on us, wanting to make sure that we get things done properly. And even though he very often would say to us, you know, I could do this, but I wouldn't. And we know that he was so bright, he could have been anything, but his rebellious nature to do things was one of those that kept him away from growing, let me rephrase that, from outgrowing just being a general worker and a foreman to being a senior manager or even a specialist. And it was all because he was just rebellious about the process. He didn't want you to do that because he wanted to show the back then the farm managers that even though a person of color who's so bright could be there, he'll remain grounded and he'll remain with his people. And I needed to kind of sit there and go like, very often we were debating that, me and my sister, and going like, why does this man just not like get disqualification and be the one who shapes it? But he actually, looking at it, he kind of plowed the ground for me to become the one who break those barriers.
Oh my goodness.
To be the one who really stands tall and who's carrying the family name and is carrying the workers. And for that I'm ever grateful. I always said that it wasn't an easy time growing up, but I do get what he has done, not just for us, but I think sometimes even more for the people around us. We were always, as children, sometimes felt that he was more caring to other people than to us. We needed to get the short end of the string because he was just so passionate about helping everybody. He was raising the village while we were sometimes going like, just give more of that to us. And we get it now. We get it, that discipline has grounded us.
He rooted
as
you as
humans.
a family and the community.
Exactly.
In Afrikaans sê ons, jy kan 'n oorlog wen met 'n man soos hy. In English that means you could win a war with a man like that. He sounds incredible.
No, he was an incredible man. Yeah.
And Mom What would you say you learned from her?
Oh, a passion for people, a passion for serving people, for acknowledging people. I think some of my work that I do as in communities, with my foundation, with just playing a role in society, is really the caring, the passionate role that she played, for carrying her family. You know, when Dad did all the tough things, she needed to hold us as kids together. And I think I've learned that part from her. I've gotten that compassionate part completely from Mom, to say that, you know, you have to carry people with grace. And I think that for me is something that I continuously do. And sometimes, maybe often, carrying people with grace, in a sense that I'm going like, why are you still doing it for this one? Why are you still doing it for that one? When they've caused so much havoc in society, but yet knowing that my mom stood in tough times and said, you know what, I will raise you to be respectful. I will raise you to acknowledge people around you and be the best human being that you can be. And still doing it till today. So I think that I take from her.
Tell us about Simonsig. Tell us about growing up on that infamous farm. It must have been a very special childhood.
Yeah, it was special. I mean, even growing up in apartheid, growing up in a time where there were turmoil in townships and turmoil on the Cape Flats. Growing up in a rural area, you didn't experience it as much. You experienced the lack of opportunity. You experienced the fact that you knew that you were, to an extent, not being seen as equal.
Yeah.
But we didn't have to run for the bullets in that sense. We didn't have to hide from police. We were able to run freely, and I always say I'm exceptionally grateful for the fact that as a child growing up on a farm, I could have walked on the farm at 12 o'clock at night in the dark and nothing would happen to me. That's how safe the space was. The community looked after one another. And that's what really made it special. And then, of course, being induced into a third generation family farm, where granddad worked with the founder of the farm, where my parents worked with their children, and myself growing up with the third generation ownership of that farm and playing together during holidays, and eating around the same table. And then I always say I'm very grateful that I was able to share a seat at the table during lunchtime, because it made me think that if this is the way one breaks bread, why is it so different in my community? Why is it different when I leave their household and I go back to the farm workers' village or household? And why is it so different how they address farm workers to how farm workers would address them? What is this big difference that we find blocking one another, rather than understanding one another? And that space kind of made me look at life, at farm life, from a different lens. It's actually the lens that started allowing me to ask all these questions. Why? What must I do to change it? Why is it not changing? And who is the holder of not breaking through those barriers? Is it really the farm owner, or is it just the mind of the farm worker? And exploring those spaces. And Simonsig has given me that opportunity to not just think, but they've given me the space to eventually break through in the industry, from being a farm child to becoming a wine advisor, learn more about wine, to becoming one of the first senior managers of color on the farm, to becoming then national brand ambassador, and through all of that, break completely into the industry to where I have ended up now at Zoetendal Vineyards, being an executive of a wine estate and taking the lead of positioning this new farm, proudly black-owned farm, into this big world of wine, and saying we stand tall and we are proud, not because we are just black, we are proud because our expertise allows us to compete with any 367-year-old farm in South Africa.
It's encouraging to hear you speak about your life on Simonsig, and it sounds like you were seen. Was there ever a time when you feel like you were not seen?
Yeah, lots of times. Lots of times for different managers. Not necessarily the family, the ownership, but the people that were managing their farms, where you kind of sometimes just felt like you're just another product. You should just listen when I tell you to do a certain thing. You don't ask questions. Challenging the status quo at Simonsig to become a wine advisor was already a difficult thing. Having to challenge the decision to become a wine advisor at the time, where I had to go and look at what is the policy of the farm, what is policy framework on that farm, for me not to become a wine advisor, for me not to pour wine to guests coming to the estate. Why am I good enough to be the glass washer, the one pushing the wine with a trolley to people's cars? Why am I good to buff glasses, clean toilets? Why am I not good enough to serve guests that comes to the farm? And it took me challenging the brothers on the farm to say, I grew up with your kids. My education, if you look at my results, are really good enough. And I have this ambition. I just need the opportunity. And being...
It takes a lot of courage, Denzil.
It was.
It takes
I
a
was
lot of
very
courage.
scared for my parents. I think my mom at one stage said to me, you know what, just continue doing what you've been doing. You don't have to challenge it. It's fine. But fine wasn't good enough for me. It was the importance of understanding, why am I not good enough to take the next step? And that is what I challenged, to understand that. And I have to say, after challenging that and getting the opportunity to prove my worth through being a wine advisor, it really allowed me to tap into the back end of what it took to run a farm, of the fears of the farm owner, not knowing if people would do justice to the position if they get it. And then being able to sit and say, you know what, the fear of the farm worker is actually the fear that you're not giving them the opportunity to showcase their ability. And so sometimes there were very much a point where people were looking past one another, or they were talking past one another.
And operating from a place of fear.
Yep. When actually all of them wanted exactly the same goal.
Yeah.
And I think that allowed me to explore those nuances.
So help us understand the chronological timeline of your life. Around what age is this happening?
It's around 18 years old when I started to really look at challenging systems, challenging to I guess not just prove a point, but challenging to really get to a point where I'm saying that we're good enough. we can do it. And if everybody else never challenged it because they felt that they're not good enough, let me be the one to break that today. You know,
whole system?
And just jump in there, immerse myself, not knowing whether I would be good enough, you know? Like
You didn't know. You didn't know.
Sometimes just go like, just get into the deep end and we'll swim.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. And we have really figured it out, eh? Like I always say to students, you should, like when I had my first gig at being a wine advisor and having to understand wine in real detail. Because of course, the essence of unknowing wine is that many farm workers and the people in our community abuse wine. They drink to get drunk and that's how they enjoy it.
Which comes from the DORP system.
Yeah, which comes from the DORP system.
Okay, so for those international guests and young people who don't know what the DORP system is, what was the DORP system?
It was a system where farm people were pretty much paid with alcohol or a form of payment for them. And so they were given wine as together with a minimal of salary. And that kind of caused a lot of farm workers to become abusers of alcohol, which in turn also related into why the Western Cape sits with the highest fetal alcohol syndrome rate because of that. And one needed to break through that system because it was holding up people bondage, not knowing how to work with finances, knowing that the only time they have pure pleasure and joy was to go to the bottle, rather than really sitting and talking and enjoying a glass of wine because of the fruit flavors of it, the amount of labor of love that goes into it, and that they didn't understand. So it was an opportunity for me to really dig into that and understand that, and why people are sitting on TV and enjoying a glass of wine when the only thing I see is people getting drunk and there's a fight happening. And how I then eventually started learning about it is learning the wines and having QR cards in my pockets. And when we used to serve wine, it was behind this counter. So people would come up to you, they would ask you about the wine, and then you pour the wine and you tell them about it. But most of the times, everything about the wine are being explained on the back label of the wine. So I knew that I needed to be able to understand and talk about these flavors about the wine. So what I used to do is, I used to not put the wine on the table, I used to put the wine on the back of me. Because when they ask for their specific wine, it gives me time to turn around and read on the label as I turn back to them. So when I pour the wine, I've had enough time to re-look at all the flavors of the wine, at what about the wine, and so I would pour it with grace, telling about the wine, knowing that I had this opportunity, this couple of seconds to read about it.
This is what they're doing. I'm admiring these sommeliers, and you're saying they are cheating. That's brilliant. It's a masterclass, folks. It's a masterclass.
So I got into this, and then all the other students started really seeing the passion that I have, and let's say all the other white students that were working. And they all started jumping in and helping me out. And we were talking about wine in the morning, asking certain questions about it, and allowing me to ask these questions. And that really elevated me. And today, I'm peers with those students in the industry where we're all on various managerial and executive roles, which is simply amazing. Yeah.
We're in the castle. We are situated in a sort of 16th century, 17th century environment. Just to touch on the DORP stelsel very quickly again, was that paid weekly or monthly?
Weekly.
Weekly.
Yeah.
Okay. So I suppose there's amount of empathy that we need to exercise, because if we put ourselves in this time frame, and you're a farm laborer and life is tough, that wine that you received at the end of the week might have been a little bit of relief. But unfortunately, over time, it creates a dependency.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that story with us. Now, in 2005, you left the industry.
Yeah.
Why?
I was, in 2005, I felt that the industry is not changing. It's not going to change. And I had a deep desire to study viticulture. And of course, because of my parents couldn't afford to pay for it, I didn't. So I worked on the farm at that stage. And I felt that the growth potential in the space that I was limiting. It was blocking. And that kind of frustrated me to see that it's not moving on as quick as it could be. Because now South Africa was a democracy. People were getting opportunities to move forward in life. And I just felt that the industry was just choking transformation.
What does that mean?
Transforming.
Choking transformation.
It was not giving you the opportunity to actually showcase your abilities and your skill and your knowledge. It was not allowing you to step into senior managerial positions. You were good enough to hold the entry-level jobs, but you were not good enough to break through that space. And I said to myself, my passion for helping people, which I got from my mom, was like, I can't do this. I'm getting frustrated. I'm not enjoying work. And I said, maybe it's time to just leave. Maybe it's time to find something else. And my love for people took me into the NGO space, where I got to work with kids in Nyanga, in Guguletu, in Khayelitsha, Mitchell's Plain, farming children, bringing them to the beautiful Stellenbosch and spending with them time in the heart of Stellenbosch in Paradise Kloof, seeing the joy on these kids' face when an adult gives time to them. And that really kind of gave me a new profound appreciation for time. Yeah.
So would you see your time in that period with NGOs as preparation for what you do now?
Yeah, very much.
So tell us, what is it that you do now? And let's talk about Son of the Soil Foundation.
Yeah, so sure. When I returned to the wine industry in 2012 after being retrenched out of that space, I pretty much knew that I needed to complete my studies. So within a couple of years, I went and did my small-scale winemaking course, became a junior sommelier, which was one of the first sommeliers in the country as they were building that profession.
For our young people who are struggling with finding a job, what is a sommelier?
Sommelier is the wine expert in a hospitality facility like a restaurant or a hotel. Is the person that brings wine and food together at the table. It's not the person that is there just to push a wine onto your table. It's the person that finds what people like and what they celebrating and suggests the wine that allows that moment to be celebrated. That is what their job is. Whether you have a 50 Rand or whether you have 10,000 Rand, is the person that will bring the best possible wine that celebrate that occasion and that brings flavors, that bring ambiance together to create one explosion moment of nostalgia.
Makes me want to change my career, the way you've explained it. Okay, and then what did you study?
And then from that, did a course as a junior manager in just administrative management, and that then gave a lot of credibility to me. So I get appointed 3 years later of coming back into the industry as the first senior tasting room manager, taking over from a mentor of mine, Maureen Basson, who managed that place for close to 35 years. So I'm stepping into these big shoes and having to fill this moment. And that moment brought all this media attention around this third generation farm child being on the third generation wine farm in a senior position. And immediately I knew that this creates an opportunity for me to become the mouthpiece for farm workers and for their children, and to talk about what would be the next step, what must we do to raise a new group of young leaders of color in the industry. And I said I couldn't go and study further, but now I can create an opportunity for farm children not to drop out when they're 16 years old and legal to work on a farm as a general worker, but to take their hand and mentor them into matric, where the distance to university is a lot shorter, and that gives them an opportunity at least to think about the possibility of becoming an expert in the industry. And I used this opportunity, piloted with 4 young people from Mitchell's Plain, and all 4 of them did very well. And then I said we need now to roll it out with farm kids. And we then took in a group of close to 20 farm children into the program, and we mentored them from grade 10 to grade 12. And essentially our role is not there to steer them in any direction. Our role is to make sure that we teach them life skills that they take on and on board to find the direction in their own life. Because they need to steer that. That should be coming from them, because that is giving them the power and the knowledge to break through whatever barrier is holding them back, because then they will become great in their own rights, rather than pushing them in the direction that they don't want to be in. And so the foundation is really about equipping young people to become active citizens and authentic leaders in society. That is the main aim. And it doesn't matter how they end up in society, if they become authentic leaders and good examples, then we've done our work.
You're a great believer in mentorship, and you are a phenomenal mentor yourself. But you've also been mentored. Who are some of your mentors? You mentioned Maureen.
Yeah, Maureen Basson. I've had the privilege of, in my life, of also thinking of becoming a religious a brother. And I take a lot from a gentleman called Edmund Rice, who've in his years were a mentor to street children, and gave up his life to look after street children. And I've never met him, because that was many years ago. I've only got engaged with his charism through Christian brothers within the Catholic Church, that I've kind of experienced and connected with, and really that charism have taught me to become a mentor to others, just by mere fact that if somebody gives you love and in abundance and willing to walk with you, you know that there's good in society. And when you experience that, there's an overjoy that you just can't keep to yourself. And then I guess my parents were great mentors to me. They kept me grounded. And I always say it's very difficult when I think about mentors, because I don't have one specific. Very often one just look at celebrities and be like, oh, I want to be like them. Oh, I want to live their lives. I actually found that a lot of my learning and guidance came from farm workers. They might not think that they've mentored me, but they've certainly shaped me, because I've seen their flaws, but I've also looked at so much good in what they were doing. The times when they didn't see the good in themselves, those were the things that I was hanging on. The eloquent speaker on the farm, the the person that makes the jokes, the one that's able to bring people around the table together and just make fun and make people feel comfortable. So I very often, from an academic point of view, my teachers. From a societal point of view, it's my parents and the many farm workers. From a career point of view, it was pretty much Maureen Basson. And now I find myself in a space where I have a boss that is a complete mentor. Like I've just found myself at the right space where somebody who's not telling you what to do.
Your boss at Zoetendal.
My boss at Zoetendal, but asking you questions and make you go like, I need to rethink that decision. Maybe I thought that I used all the knowledge that I have to make this decision, but was it the right decision? And I'll tell you, and today I'm sitting here and I had a meeting with him earlier today, and there was one takeaway from that meeting, and I'm sitting now and I can only hear those words echoing to me. And he said, whatever decision you're making around people, first put yourself in their shoes and then ask yourself, would I still make the same decision if it was me?
Excellent. Absolutely excellent. We're not done with Son of the Soil, because I've been in a blessed position where I have enjoyed the service of the young people that you mentor, and I still follow your alumni. Just incredible young people. So tell us exactly what it is. If I am a grade 10 learner and I come to Son of the Soil Foundation, what is it that I go through, and at the end, what is my reward?
Yeah. So you essentially, you write to us a motivation why you need to become part of the program. In that motivation, there's two critical things that you have to do. Is you have to get your parents to motivate why you should become a part of it, and commit that they will journey with you. The second big one is that you need to tell us, who do you see as a mentor? But it needs to be somebody in the community, and you have to explain why that person is a mentor, or why you see them as an icon figure in your life. And the purpose of that specific quest is the fact that you want to teach young people to not look far for inspiration. The inspiration is around them all the time, but they need to look, they need to sit, and they need to observe. And then they know that the reach to great mentors is not out of reach, it is in reach, because you make them really zoom in and realize that there's great people around them. Because quite often young people want to break out of their communities because they feel that the good is outside of the community. And there's so much good in the community, but it requires them and many other people to unlock that good. And we want to teach them that from the beginning by grounding them.
And then you've got the different modules.
Well, now you get accepted, you come into the program, you must do life skill sessions, which we bring in different people to do it. You need to do well in school. And if you don't do well in school, you're not being discredited. It just allows us to bring the right people around. So we then go and find people to mentor or to help you with your studies. And then the third one, which you've experienced, is that they must do community service. They need to learn that when you've been given an opportunity, you need to share that. Something which Archbishop Desmond Tutu speak a lot about, the ripple effect. You need to be able to give, and when you give, other people receive, and when they receive it with the right frame, they will know that they have to give it to somebody else. And so that is the core foundation of it, is education, yourself, and community. Bringing those three. And at the end, if you make it to matric, you could either get a bursary to go and study further, or you get an opportunity to internationally travel with us.
Talk about it. Where do they go?
So
Where do they go?
The first group, the two young men that completed went with me to Panama. So they went with me to South America on a World Youth Day experience where there were over 1 million young people coming together in Panama City, in the core center of it.
Do you focus on wine regions?
No, because we don't steer them into any direction, but we bring them in an environment where they connect with people from across the world, so that they learn language, that they're able to be communicating through language barriers, but they get to live with the family, whether they speak the language or not. They'll have to find ways of speaking to each other. But they live a week with the family, get to become a local, and then they live a luxury week, where you stay in a hotel, you do all the touristy stuff because you have to do it. But the importance, once again, is about opening their eyes and seeing that there's also areas in other countries which is not so well, and areas that's really well. And when you come back to South Africa, there's a new appreciation for South Africa and your community.
Of course.
Knowing that it can be anywhere in the world.
Jy het mos nou gesê jy's van die Tafelsig af. And people don't know we're homies in that regard. You're from Tafelsig, I'm from Portland, we're from Mitchell's Plain. You do great work in the community as well in farmlands. What is the difference between a kid from places like that who has traveled abroad and a kid from places like that who hasn't? You've touched on it somewhat.
I think there's a big difference. There's a child that have gone abroad get to experience a world where it feels like everything is in reach. There's no restriction. A child that stays in a community that haven't traveled very much sometimes feel that there's a whole lot of barriers. So they're so consumed by what happens in that community that they feel the growth potential is not there. And once you allow them out and they see other things and experience other people and they listen to other people's stories, they become just so much wiser. Die klappe gaan af van die oor af. And I always say that you experience outside, and this is what I've experienced. I've experienced that the color of a person's skin doesn't matter, but it's the color of a person's heart.
Oof.
But I needed to leave South Africa to experience that. I needed to go to a country like Australia and only realize after a week later that I'm one of a few people of color, and I've never talked about color. I've just been speaking to people's hearts and energies. And I think that's what it teaches you, that the world is far bigger than just where you are. And then you get a sense of appreciation, and you want to get this lust for life and different countries, and you'll never come back the same. A perfect example of a young man that have traveled with me, who came back, got a bursary to become a butler, became a butler, started working for very influential South African families, billionaires, left the country and is now working for a prince in Qatar, and looking after their family. And those are things that, those opportunities have taught him that his reach is not just South Africa, his reach can be anywhere in the world. But if he didn't have that opportunity, he might not have never seen the opportunity to move further than his community.
I applaud you for providing our children with those opportunities. And listening to you speak now, I really hope that we are able to produce more programs that give our children the opportunity to travel instead of just depending on them to be great at soccer and rugby and then travel the world on something. So thank you so much for that.
It's a pleasure. We're already pushing through those barriers. I'm kickstarting a new project in Mitchell's Plain that actually have used the passion of football of young people, and I'm turning that now into a catalyst for them to get involved in community work and get involved in life skills, and at the end of year enjoy a particular reward. But they're not getting a reward for soccer. Their team can be the best team in the league, can have the most points, but the team at the lowest rank of the league could get the opportunity to go to this experience because they've given back to community and they've educated themselves. And that's a project that's kicking off in the next couple of months.
Super proud of you.
Thank you.
So you got back to the wine industry in 2011,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Something in you must have shifted. You must have realized I'm not just part of the wine industry, but I've possibly been born to reshape it.
Definitely. Coming back to the wine industry, it felt like an instant fit. It felt like I'd never left it. But I've also felt that sense of responsibility. And this energy to start sifting things in the industry. And I knew I'm not going to sift it by using apartheid and the blame of apartheid. I'm going to sift it by educating myself and showing people that we are ready for change. And when I did that shift, that's when things started to happen for me. And then I started making other people around me believe that it's possible. Bringing the farm worker in the cellar and tell them to come and talk about that wine that they've made to guests. And paying them more than what they receive in the cellar. Bringing the farm worker and tell them that you're an expert and a leader in your field. You might not have the education, you might not have the certificate, but with over 20 years experience in looking after vines, you have a natural ability to look at the vine and know that the vine is ill and address it. And telling them that's your certificate and that needs to be celebrated and appreciated, and you need to come and tell that story, and for that you can get more. And then saying to them, now you can go and study further. There's processes, there's opportunities to do it, and if you don't want to do it, at least be the one that motivates your child to do it. Because that's the only way we're going to sift it. We need more ripples to change. And that really has changed things for me at the moment.
The vineyard is local, the table is global. We are now fully within the BRICS environment. What does that mean for the wine industry?
So it opens a lot. I mean, the BRICS connects and allows us to take wine into the BRICS countries at reduced tariffs or most of the times tariff-free.
What does that mean?
So it means that we don't pay a custom tax, we don't pay a health tax on the wine. So it helps with sort of free trade between the countries. And that means that you can bring your wine in at a competitive rate to the traditional countries like France. So your wine then enjoys rebates that will put you at a very favorable position in a supermarket, on shelf, or in a restaurant. And we know that when people go out and enjoy wine, they're also sometimes in a lot of countries, it is about being price sensitive. It is about looking at the money that you have and how you can change that little that you have and creating more from it. Help South Africa to become in a more favorable position in terms of getting the wines out into these countries. But also the opportunity to use sometimes those countries to tap into other countries. So for instance, going to South America, not through countries that have high taxes. So you go through Brazil maybe, where you get a preferential rate, and then out of Brazil, you can then dispatch your wine into other southern South American countries. So it really allows us to become a stronghold and showcase, because South Africa is considered to be a new world wine country, which means that we haven't made wine for that long. However, if we look at it, the first wines were made 1659.
In this era?
In the gardens. The first wines were in the gardens, right?
The company gardens?
Yeah, in the company gardens. And then the first commercial wines were made at Groot Constantia. But because of apartheid, there were sanctions against us, so we couldn't export. And then after apartheid, when the global markets opened, we needed to get in, but so many other countries was ahead of us. And so for us to get in, people didn't have enough faith in our winemaking ability, and we went in at a higher price because we had to compete. And now we can go in quality and price and get favorable positioning.
It sounds as though the BRICS network is very beneficial to your sector. And it sounds as though there are lots of opportunities for our young children. Are we preparing them enough?
Yes, we do.
We are?
There's so many academies that have opened up. I'm a director of an academy in Stellenbosch called the Pinotage Youth Development Academy. And that academy teaches young people in international wine studies, which take them into either becoming hospitality people, managers, or sommeliers. And now we're seeing a lot of the young people who's now going to study further is eventually going onto boats, cruise ships. So now they start becoming a South African export product in terms of their knowledge and skills on these boats. So it's opening up. Our young people just need to take advantage of those opportunities.
Tell us about your wine.
Yeah.
Tell us about your wine.
So in 2003, of course, I made a shift from Stellenbosch, the iconic Stellenbosch, to all the way to where the two oceans meet, the Atlantic and the Indian, Cape Agulhas. I joined a farm called Zoetendal Vineyards at the most southern tip, and we've decided to revive this old farm into a farm that has prestige, that makes quality wine, and that really is about looking at the environment and telling a story beyond the bottle. And when I arrived, we had a Chenin Blanc, a Sauvignon Blanc, and the red blend, which is on the table. And I said, but we need to do something different. We need to position ourselves different. Why don't we look at making a hooded Sauvignon Blanc? So in 2003, we did an experimental batch of the hooded Sauvignon Blanc. And behold, later in the year, it goes on become the best terroir Sauvignon Blanc. It wins the double Veritas Gold, and Veritas is like the Oscars of wines in South Africa. It gets a double gold from the Gillard, which is a French competition, and we instantly knew that we were doing something that is going to put us on the map. And we said, but how do we further position it? And we said, now let's ensure that this 1.3 hectare vineyard next to our manor house gets preserved and gets registered as a single vineyard, which means we're not allowed to add any grapes from anywhere else into this wine. We can only make wine from those grapes and moving forward. And so we've registered this block, and in the next 2 months we'll be releasing the first wine only made from that single vineyard into the market.
The Southern Question will be there in 2 months.
Please, come. You're welcome. More than welcome. Come and stay over and experience the most sudden tip coming together.
Can't wait.
And then we've added the Cup Classic. I was born on a Cup Classic farm, so it was imminent that a Cup Classic would find its way to Zoetendal.
My favorite.
And, you love Cup Classics. And then we added a Chardonnay, which we experimented, and it's now becoming full-blown as part of the package. And we're looking at some new cultivars that we can grow in the area. And we have enough land to start playing around with that. So there's some stuff up the sleeve that we are doing. But our positioning essentially at Zoetendal is, if I would explain it from right over here. If you look at this logo, a lot of people see the protea. But if you look a lot deeper, it's actually a ship sailing in the waters.
Oh, wow.
It's like a Viking ship.
Yes.
And the name of that ship was Zoetendal, which sunk in the 1600s at the most southern tip. That's how the farm got its name.
In the 1600s?
From the ship. But if I close the ocean waves,
Becomes
it is
a protea.
And that is the natural fynbos growing in our area.
And our national flower.
Our national flower. But there's something a lot deeper to this. If I close the ocean and I close the pincushions, there's an anchor. And when a ship docks, it throws its anchor down. So we have anchored the history of Zoetendal, the ship, back into its natural biodiversity, which is the protea. And we could have changed the name as new owners, but we realized there is value in the history of this area, and we needed to preserve that history. And that is how this logo comes together. So today, we don't talk about a wine is better than other people's wines. We have a campaign that says we show up for the environment. We show up for people, and we show up for quality. And that is what we do. So when you see Zoetendal anywhere else, you know that we haven't just arrived, but we also show up.
Come on. Listen, I love the experience you create around wine and dining. You have exploded my palate when it comes to Cup Classique. And what is it you want people to feel when they are enjoying a glass?
Sure.
Besides everything you've just mentioned, you want them to feel the history and the story, but what do you want them to feel?
I think it's one thing which we very seldom talk about, is the bottled stories. I want them to, when they take a sip, to experience the farm laborer that wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning and has to rear this vine to give fruit. I want them to experience those hopes, aspirations, and dreams. I want them to experience the sense of place where it's coming from. And then ultimately, all of that things to come together, and I want them to experience being grounded in that moment and being present with the people that they are sharing it with. Because that's important. I think so often, and maybe this is also the legacy that we're moving past from alcohol abuse, is that people are drinking wine to forget about the moment. I'm saying let's bring it back. Let's enjoy wine and be present in the moment of enjoying that wine. Knowing who's around you, who's sitting across from you. When you take that sip, what you're celebrating, what you're talking about, and finding enjoyment in that moment.
Oh my gosh, that was so moving. You do that
you.
so well. We end every episode of The Southern Question with a question, and I love that you've ended on that, because that gives me my question. My question is, as South Africans, how do we honor the hands that have built this country, that have built the industries, like your industry, like the wine industry. How do we honor those hands, but how do we honor them with opportunity and legacy?
I think it's a very, very easy question. It's about supporting them.
Supporting them.
I
Giving them
think-
ownership.
Yeah, giving them ownership, support them, buy local products, local made products. Knowing that that will feed households, but it also creates an opportunity for a child to go and study further. I have the sense now that people constantly say to me, why are you so patriotic about South Africa? Why? And I'm going like, you know what? I realize in life that we grow up and we get conditioned. Anything but South African is good. So when you drink wine, you must drink French wine. When you wear clothes, you must wear Italian clothes. And nothing wrong with international brands that have made their mark. But if you just look at the quality that is right around you,
I am head to toe in local.
no, and the history that's rooted in that, and the opportunity that you create by keeping the money, the circular economy in South Africa, then you're not just buying a t-shirt, you're not just buying a pair of shoes, you're not just buying a fruit, you're sending a young person to school, you're sending a young person to university, and you're looking after a community. That is where your money is going.
You're such an advocate and such a
Thank you.
deserving winner of this award.
Thank you very much.
I applaud you, my friend.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Good.
Thank you for coming. I
Oh,
think the
thank you
castle
for
is kicking us
inviting me.
out now. They've just put the sprinklers on. Thank you, Denzil.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you, Jolene, for inviting me. Thank you for the sudden question, for getting me on here. And I hope that the inspiration that people take from here is not an inspiration of just my moment, but it teaches us that we as a community have to look after each other.
You rock.